Thank you for the invitation and congratulations for this great event. Um, we are starting to work in Africa, and according to UN Habitat, more than 1 billion new people will be urbanized in Africa by 2050. So this means that this is equivalent to build 5 Lisbons every month in the next 30 years. So it is a process of urbanization even bigger than what happened in China in the last years. And the process, in fact, has already started in cities like New Cairo. And then what we see is that we are still applying the principles of the industrial city that we built in the 20th century, where cities that emit CO2, where we bring food with containers, that we produce energy somewhere, we use concrete for our buildings, and so on. But the magical things about mostly the lower part of Africa, the rainforest, is that are countries that are almost a forest. Gabon is 95% forest, and we were requested to develop a plan for a new development near Libreville, that is the capital. What's happening in many African cities is that they are developed using the linear city model, using the roads. There is not a planning process of urbanization, although it's done by someone like Chinese and so on. And the other dramatical thing is, although they have a huge amount of resources of timber, they are using concrete. That is the thing that we want to get right out of it. No, so it seems that the place that will be the biggest, had the biggest urbanization in the 21st century is still applying the principles of our 20th century, that we understood that this is what is somehow helping the global warming and so on. So the solution, and this is where we are working also in the European context and in many other places, is to develop cities based on nature-based solutions, coming back to the origin, going back to the forest. And the truth is that they are doing an incredible work on protecting their forests and doing a sustainable management of the forest. They get concessions to harvest trees. They take 1 or 2 trees in 1 hectare, and they will be back to that area in 25 years. So there is an industry of timber that is growing, where for the moment they are doing only very basic things, that is cutting trees and producing timber. The bad news is that this timber is not used for African cities. It's exported to China and to Europe. And then our idea was, and this is what we are discussing with the government, how we can apply their own resources that they are rich in order to produce a new role model to build a new African cities and to inspire the world. So, and then it came with the idea of the circular bioeconomy, the idea that the architects, we should not be only focused on the design of the form, the design of the building, but to understand and to promote the full cycle of the extraction of the material from the nature, its industrial transformation, the parametric design using new technologies, and then to build a new generation of buildings. But what about cities? Then the cities, we imagine that we could create a new generation in cities that instead to emit CO2, they absorb CO2. Cities that produce food locally, that produce their own energy. So somehow cities, they follow the rules of the nature, what we call the biocities or the forest city. From that point of view, another important thing is what is the basic structure from the city. As you may know, I was chief architect of Barcelona. For 4 years, in Barcelona, the word urbanization was coined, and urbanization was a process where we were implanting a grid on top of the nature. But if you see what is the nature has some of the kind of geometries, are the fractal geometries where there is not a center, where there is a self-similarity in the form. And that's why we were analyzing how we could apply the principles of the linear cities, that is an idea developed in the 19th century by Arturo Soria in Madrid, and then to develop a new form of cities where we were using the African principle of the linear city, where we were also creating different neighborhoods, where we were also letting the nature to connect the different parts. And also a way to build cities that could grow also in a fractal way, where there will be not a clear limit, but there will be a clear rule of how to grow the cities. So the solution is this simple diagram that is the base for our project. The idea of creating a linear city that is connecting like different neighborhoods. Today we are talking about these 15-minute cities. So that means the idea that we have mostly a linear city with public transportation, and then the rest is mostly pedestrian. So in our idea, you see, we create these neighborhoods that are mixed use, that they have different grains, where also are interacting between each other, but they are also interacting with the nature. And then what we do is we make cities that don't grow against the nature, but cities that grow with the nature. And we are talking to a place that basically the whole country, the whole continent is nature, and it's still a kind of virgin nature that are in the risk to fall in the same problems that we have created in the rest of the world. So the way we propose to build these neighborhoods are using obviously timber as material, but timber that is harvested from the region, and timber that is, let's say, manipulated and transformed there. A city that is building itself, a city that producing their own energy using solar panels, in this case, because we are near the equator, will be almost flat. A city that is also organized with a mixed use, a place where the city can work and can live. And then the idea that in the Africa cities, they are using also new technologies, also for the mobility and for the, I would say, new technologies like the distributed model to produce local energy, and promoting low mobility is a great role model in order not to destroy the whole continent, creating great infrastructures, in order to imagine, as we are doing in Europe, to try to save our cities, reintroducing the nature. The nature is already there. And then in this neighborhood, as you see, we introduce the markets as a central place, a market that defines also the core of many cities around the world. And this is the place that in Africa right now is the meeting place, a market that is represented with this big pergola, a place where also, as I say, we use drones in order to develop some special deliveries, especially in a territory that is very wide. A city that is also, as you see, connected with the forest, where the material that is coming from the forest will be manipulated in a biofactory, where we produce some of the material that will be used for the city. So the idea is that in the same way that some of the neighborhood, social housing neighborhood built in the 60s, they have their own concrete factory to produce the panels for the buildings. We'll have our timber factory within the city in order to produce the material for the city itself. And obviously buildings that generate their own energy in a walkable city, etc. So here, just to end, we have a small video that explains how this model of the branch city can be adapted to the territory in order to create this kind of density, but this continuous neighborhood that are connected through these transportation networks, and create this kind of human scale, a new generation of the city following the rules of the nature. This is the biofactory that will be one of the corners of the city where they will be manipulating. So I would say that in this way you can empower the local economy, because they are building the support of experts from wherever is needed. But the idea is that they build the city themselves using the local resources, and with that knowledge also they can inspire other places of the world where we are trying to do similar transformations. we want to make this new way of making cities possible. Thank you.